so with factoring, there are really just three main steps I like students to focus on. And the first one is the greatest common factor. This is what we have on the front, the first three steps. And today we are going to talk about factoring and you. Okay, so in order to help people remember the rules of factoring, I like to tell people the rules of factoring are like the rules of dating, okay? You meet somebody nice, you want to hang out with them, the first thing you want to do is see what you have in common, okay? You don't have to write this part down right now, you can pay attention and then we'll write it here. Okay, so first thing you want to do is see what you guys have in common. Then, the next thing you want to do is see what's special about that person. What makes them unique? Okay, and then the third step is we just take a leap of faith, right? We guess and we check it out. Alright, so what do you have in common? What's special? Oh, let's give them a chance. Let's check it out, see what happens. Sound good? Alright, so the common is going to be, in terms of factoring, common factors. The special for factoring are going to be patterns, and you guess and check using FOIL. Right? Bada bing, bada boom. So that's factoring in a condensed method. So now we're going to do some examples, keeping those in mind. So the first thing we're going to do is take out a common factor. Okay, so take out a common factor. And a common factor could be called the LCM, the least common multiple. In this worksheet, they call it the golden rule of factoring, which I don't know about that, but I do know it's always what you want to do first. Okay, so for your example, you have 9x squared plus 27x. So what you would do is look at the numbers. So for 9 and 27, the largest number that goes into both of them is 9. So 9x squared divided by 9 is going to be 1, which is why we don't have a number there. Think about for this, when you have x squared divided by x, when you are dividing those, if you're dividing x squared by x, what do you do with the exponents? Subtract. So this is like 2 minus 1, that's why you have 1x there. Okay, and then 27x. Once you know what your common factor is, you just divide. 27 divided by 9 is 3. Okay, and then x divided by x is going to cancel out. So for this one, you have 9x squared divided by 9x. That's where you're getting the x plus 3 on the inside. 9x is going to stay on the outside. Okay, so you're looking for common numbers and common variables. So there are two different things you are looking for there. Common numbers and common variables. I'm going to give you one to try. And I like to treat these separately. I do look for the numbers first, and then I look for the variables. That's just how my brain compartmentalizes things. So this is factoring in you, so you are going to try this one. So 16x cubed multiplied by y minus 28x squared times y squared. So pick out the common number first, and then we will go to the variables. I am going to give you a minute to try that. so for the number part, you have the 16 and the 28. Maya, what are you thinking? What goes into both 16 and 28, the largest number? 4. Good. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is pull out a 4. Then I'm going to look at my x's. So here I have x cubed, here I have x squared. It should always be the lower number of x's because I can't take 3 out if I only have 2. But each of them has 2 to give, so I am going to take out x squared from each. And then I have a y and a y squared, so again I'm taking out the smaller one, which would be y. And then I put my parentheses. Okay, so I always take that out first, and then I do the division in my head. So what I'm doing is dividing 16 divided by 4, which is 4. X cubed divided by x squared, which is x, and then y divided by y, which is just 1, right? So if it's 1, I don't have to write it down. So I'm going to leave it as 4x. And then the sign's going to stay the same here. 28 divided by 4 is 7. X squared divided by itself is 1, so that cancels. Y squared divided by y is y. So this will be your final answer. The last thing I do is I just check this by distributing 4 times 4, x squared times x, and then the y. And I just do that as a quick check to make sure I did everything correctly. All right, what questions do you guys have for me on step 1? All right, a lot of times these are going to happen with what's called a binomial. Do you guys remember that term, binomial? Think about the prefix, right? So bi, like a bicycle, has 2 wheels. Binomial has 2 terms. It's also going to happen for trinomials, which have how many terms? 3, okay? So you always want to take out the common factor first, even if it's a trinomial, okay? The second thing we're going to do is find a pattern, okay? So see what's special. Is there something special about this function? Bless you. And in terms of the patterns, what you're going to do is really you're going to look for the difference of 2 squares. That's the number one thing that you're going to look for. So we're going to go over the standard form of the difference of 2 squares. And then here's a value with numbers. So you have 9x squared minus 64. That's going to factor into 3x minus 8 times 3x plus 8. And then you can check this with FOIL. So when you have a minus at the end, we know the signs are going to be the opposite. When you are checking with FOIL, I like to make a little happy face. And you guys might have different methods for FOIL. Did some of you do like the box method? Does that ring a bell or no? The box method? Okay. So do we remember what FOIL looks like? What does it stand for? Yeah. What's the first one? What's the F? First, outer, inner, last. And I like to do FEEL. So if I'm checking this with FOIL, 3x minus 8 times 3x plus 8, I do first times first. 3x times 3x is going to be 9x squared. And then I do the inside, which is negative 24x. The outside, which will be positive 24x. And then I can combine my like terms. So negative 24x plus 24x is going to be 0. So those are going to cancel. And then 8 times negative 8 is going to be negative 64. So 9x squared minus 64. Now you may have noticed these two numbers here, 9 and 64, are special. Do you guys remember what these are called? Yeah, it's the perfect squares. Yeah? Which a perfect square just means you can take the square root of it and get a whole number. So we're going to list the perfect squares here on the side. So this is what you are going to look for when you are factoring. The first one is 1. The square root of 1 is 1. What's the next one? Yeah, so 4. Yeah. So you guys see how she's getting these so fast? 1 squared is 1. 2 squared is 4. 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. 5 squared? 6 squared? Next one? Next? Next? And last one. Okay, so we'll go to 100. Okay, so those are going to be the most common ones that you're going to see. There's always a general rule for a pattern. So the difference of 2 squares, we're going to write out that pattern, is a squared minus b squared. So if you have 2 perfect squares, that is going to factor to a plus b and a minus b. Okay, this is your answer when you are factoring. Okay, difference of 2 squares. All right, the next one is a perfect square trinomial. Now with the perfect square trinomials, it is not imperative that you recognize the pattern because you can get there just by guessing and checking. But I do want to show you how this works. So a perfect square trinomial is going to start with a perfect square, and it is going to end with a perfect square. So it starts with a perfect square 16, ends with a perfect square 25. There are 2 different patterns for this, because if the middle is plus, this is going to be plus, and if the middle is subtraction, this will be subtraction. Okay, so there are 2 special rules for that. So the first one is the addition. Okay, so for the addition, the pattern is you have a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And then what happens is that equals a plus b times a plus b. And then when you recognize that this is the same, something multiplied by itself can be written as a plus b to the power of 2. Okay, so when I say that you'll be able to get there using the normal factoring rules, what I mean is if you have this, you would start like with your 2 parentheses, right? So you have here and then here. Just going to kind of squeeze that in underneath. So for 16x squared, you actually have many different possibilities. You could start with 16x and x, 4x and 4x, 8x and 2x. If we start with 4x and 4x, and we're trying to multiply to 25, through our guessing and checking, we're going to end up with 4x plus 5 times 4x plus 5. So you just have to make sure you condense it to the 4x plus 5 squared. Okay, so you can get there with guess and check. For the subtraction, I'm going to show you how this fits the pattern. Okay, so for the subtraction, notice that the only thing that is minus is the middle. And that's because if you have a negative times a negative, that results in a positive. That's why the last one has to be positive. So it'll be a minus b times a minus b, which is going to simplify to a minus b squared. going to review how this fits the pattern. So for the first one, a squared, this would be 4x squared. And then this is minus, see how you have 2 times a times b? This would be 2 times, and then your a value is the 4x. Your b value is going to be whatever the last value squared is. So to get to 25, I would do 5 squared. So this is why it fits the pattern. 4x squared would be 16x squared. 5 squared is 25. So if I do 2 times 4x, I get 8x. 8x times 5 is 40. Again, this is one that you can find by guessing and checking, so I don't necessarily expect you to always find the perfect square trinomial on the first try. We can absolutely get there by guessing and checking. Okay, today we are going to only go to 3a, which is factoring the trinomial back into 2 binomials. So remember I said this is your guess and your check. So you're guessing and checking, and you're going to use FOIL, or FEAL, which is what I like. Okay, when it says use the question, that means use this question here. What multiplies to get 30, but then adds to get 17? Okay, so one thing that you can do is you can list the factors of 30. So the last number is the one that you're going to use, and you say to yourself, okay, 1 times 30, 2 times what? 15. Does 3 go in there? 3 times 10. Does 4 go in there? No. Does 5? 5 times 6. And then once the number repeats, you know that you found them all. So if you have a leading coefficient of 1, if 1 is in front of x squared, you can just find which 2 in this case add, because when you are doing this process, you're going to start with x times x, and then you know that if it multiplies to a positive, it's either both positive or both a negative. Okay, so if this is positive, this means that they have to have the same sign. Because this is positive, they are both addition. So this is plus and plus. If this is negative at the back, that is when you will have minus. A plus and a minus. Alright, so then here you can obviously see this, but 2 plus 15. You could also have 15 plus 2. Either one of those are going to work because you are multiplying. Is that ringing a bell? Alright, we're going to do a little bit more. Like I said, for this, I'm going to stop here. We'll look at B tomorrow. Today we're going to be guessing and checking. So what I need you guys to have out is your algebra review packet. Go to the last page. So keep out your homework if I haven't checked yours yet. Alright, so some of these you were multiplying. This is the multiplying, the first ones, is like the opposite of taking out the greatest common factor. So this multiplying is really how you would check the ones with the GCF. So a negative times a positive is a negative, so this is negative 28x squared. Negative times a negative is a positive, so this would be 20xy. If there's 2 terms inside, there should be 2 terms outside. Alright, same process here. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. This will be x to the 5th, because x times x to the 4th, you add the exponents. This will be minus 8xy. How do you do with those two? Doing good? Got the multiplying? Number by number, letter by letter. Alright, now for 52, when you're multiplying here, this is where you're using FOIL. Okay, so I like to do the outside, the x times x, to get x squared. And then I always put like the nose and the mouth of the happy face, because I like to put the negative 2x here, the 5x here, and then I combine my like terms. So many, many times the middle terms are going to be your like terms. So negative 2 plus 5 is going to be positive 3, so positive 3x. And then negative 2 times 5 is going to be negative 10. Okay, with this one, negative 2x times x is negative 2x squared. So like I said, I put that there. And then I like to do the inside, negative 5x. Here you have to multiply negative 2x by 2. So this is negative 4x. Negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9. And then a negative times a positive is going to be negative. Alright, what questions do you guys have for me on the first 3 there? 4. Alright, you guys ready to factor? Yes, you. Alright, so when we are factoring, okay, your final answer is going to have parentheses. First thing is look for what they have in common. There's nothing that all 3 of them have in common. Okay, this is not a difference of 2 squares, so I'm going to go right to the guess and check phase. If I have x squared, I know that I'm starting with x and x. This is a negative, which means you have a plus and a minus. And then you're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to 18, but add to 3. So some of you can do that right away. Others of us might want to make a T-chart. You do what's comfortable for you. Just make sure you check your signs. So if I put a positive 3 and a negative 6, 3 minus 6 is negative 3. 3 times negative 6 is negative 18, so I am good. Okay, so what multiplies to negative 18 but adds to negative 3? 55 is going to be similar because I'm starting with x squared. So I'm going to do x and x. I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to negative 20 but add to negative 1. So that would be negative 5 and positive 4. Again, check with FOIL. Negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. So negative 1 acts in the middle. Negative 5 times 4 is going to be negative 20. How did those two go? 54, 55. Thumbs up, thumbs to the side, thumbs down. Okay. Alright, we're going to skip 56 for right now. For 57, you have x squared minus 81. I hope that we recognize that this is a perfect square. If it's a perfect squared, we're going to have x plus 9, x minus 9, because 9x minus 9x cancels out. That's why we don't have a middle term. 9 times negative 9 is negative 81. Alright, now 56 is special because the leading coefficient is not 1. And what that means is we're going to have to do some guessing and checking. But there is a silver lining. 5 is a special type of number. Does anybody know what type of number I want you to recognize that as? A what? Yeah, it's a prime number, which makes things nice because then the only thing that goes into it is 5 and 1. Okay, but 8 is not prime, which means I can either have 8x times x to get the first term, or I could have 4x times what? 2x. Alright, so this is where we have to, you guys may have heard the term plug and chug. Plug it in, keep chugging, right? You're just going to see if it happens. You guys have heard that before, right? Oh, okay. Ashley, have you heard it? No. Jack, have you heard it? No. Teach you guys so many new things. So, plug and chug means you plug it in and then you chug along like a choo-choo train. Okay, so shouldn't is optional, okay? So with the 8x, I have 1 and 5. That's the only thing that makes 5. Because it's negative, the signs are opposite. One has to be plus, one has to be minus. So what I do is I just do the inside x. This would be negative 40x, which is negative 39x. Is that what I want in the middle? No, I want 18, right? So that's not going to work. When you have a number on the outside, though, you do have to check and make sure that you flip the numbers. So let's check and see if 5 works in the middle here. So 5 times x would be 5x. This would be negative 8x. 5 minus 8 is negative 3. Again, not what I want, so that doesn't work either. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the 4x and the 2x. Okay, so again, I have to have opposite signs. So I normally just put plus and minus and then adjust if I need to. So let's try plus 5 minus 1. Okay, so this would be 10x. This would be negative 4x, which is 6x. Is that what I want? No. All right, so then that doesn't mean that that doesn't work. That means I have to switch these two numbers, okay? So let's do 4x minus 1 and 2x plus 5 and see what happens. Because now, on the inside, I'm multiplying by the 2. On the outside, I'm multiplying by the 20. Oh, and look, 20x minus 2x is 18x. And the sign is right in everything. If the number's right but the sign is wrong, do you guys know what you have to do? You just have to flip-flop the signs. Okay, so if you tried 4x plus 1 and minus 5, you just have to flip-flop those. Okay, so we checked that with FOIL, so we are good to go. All right, your homework is a packet. It is not optional. I am going to check this, but you do not have to do all of the problems on the packet. There are special problems that we are going to do, so I'm going to put up your calendar so you can write this down when you get it. And then there are actually a couple that we're going to do together. Okay, so I want you to go to section 2. Okay, for section 2, you are factoring out the greatest common monomial factor. So for number 8, you have 12x squared minus 9x plus 15. It's okay that it's a trinomial. All right, first look at the numbers. What numbers go into 12, 9, and 15? 3. So I'm going to take out the 3, and then can I take out a variable from all of them? Also, some of you might want to put your work on another piece of paper. I just asked that, label your numbers. Can I take an x out from all of them? No. Okay, so I take out the 3, and then I get 4x squared. Right? I'm just dividing. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 9 divided by 3 is negative 3x. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now, because it is a trinomial, we do want to check to see if we can FOIL this again. So like I said, this one, you guys can pay attention to this with me because I know we're doing it together. So for this, you would check 4x and x. This is another one where you have a prime number. So if you have plus 5, oops, sorry, these are both minus. See how this is negative and this is plus? So negative times a negative is a positive. You add 2 negatives, you get this. All right, but this is negative x minus 20. Is that going to give me what I want? Negative 3? No, so then let's turn them around. So 4x minus 5, x minus 1. This is negative 5 minus 4x, negative 9x. Okay, that's not going to work. So instead of trying 4 and 1, what else could I try? What else is going to give me 4x squared? 2. So let's try 2 and 2. So this would be minus 5 minus 1, negative 10 and negative 2. Again, that is not giving me what I need, so I can't factor that again. This is going to be my final answer. Okay, and then the other one of the other ones we have to do, for this one you're doing the evens. Okay, so for number 10, is there a number that goes into 9, 4, and 12? Okay, so 3 goes into 9 and 12, but not into 4, so that wouldn't work. 4 goes into 4 and 12, but not into 9, so that wouldn't work. What about any variables? Nope. So in this case, this is not factorable. And we call that, it's a prime. Now that is only going to happen one other time. So you are not going to write that all over the place. I'm going to tell you where it is. Okay? It is in the last section that I'm asking you to do, this one. This is the section where you're doing numbers 1 through 11. One of them is prime. And honestly, this might be a good section to start with, too. And knock that out. Okay, so on Monday, I'm going to be checking these sections. So you need to see your stuff. And then I'll play some music and come on in.